Good morning. Good morning. We'll call the Kaneohe County Board of Commissioners to order. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome everybody to today's meeting. Before we move on to our fairly long agenda here and our order of business, I'd like for us to maybe take a moment of silence to think about the community of Burnsville and Dakota County and the loss they experienced this week. Thank you. So you all received the packet in your agenda via the iCompass or your email. First order of business is to approval of the agenda.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Then there are 4 items on the consent agenda. Approval of the legal minutes from the last meeting that you received on iCompass. Approval of the auditor's warrants and claims. The approval of the human services warrants and claims. And then the cancellation of services and warrants. For anybody watching, cancellations are checks that were made out for the wrong amount or the wrong purchase, mistakes it's like voiding a check. So I entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Commissioner Berg moves on the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. First item under general business discussions, this is an action item, Resolution 2024-5, Public Land Survey Monumentation Grant. Matt Runke, come on up to the podium and good morning.
Good morning. Here to talk to you this morning about,
For the record and those watching, identify who you are and who you represent.
Matt Runke, Kaneohe County Surveyor.
Thank you.
Here to talk to you this morning about a grant opportunity from the state of Minnesota passed last legislative session to make funding available to counties to restore, maintain, and update the public land survey system within the counties. So this would include both monuments in the ground at the county and also survey records to aid in updating or the history of the PLSS system. So public land survey system is the foundation of all the county land records. Here's an example of an original section corner if you just want to get it around. So the public land survey system was performed in Kaneohe County between 1856 and 1857. During that time, the government surveyors came through and set section corners, which would be every mile. Quarter corners would be the halfway points, midpoints on those, and then meander corners, which we have a lot of in Kaneohe County because we have lakes. So anytime that a corner would land in a lake, they would set a meander corner to show where that line is. So and the courts have said that wherever those original stakes were put in the ground is the true location for all property boundaries. So they're very important for all boundaries. Most of the corners were originally set were charred wood stakes like that. They would have taken earth and sod, put it on top of the stake and dug pits, and that's what would have marked your section corners. So as you can imagine over time with a wood stake and sod, buffalo running around, road construction, development, over time, those corners have been either buried or lost, or in most cases are there, just need to be found back. So, in Kaneohe County, there's 3,016 original government land office survey corners that were set as part of that survey. To date, 21% of those would have a section corner certificate prepared. So what that is it's a picture on the front that would show where the corner location is in reference to roads, fence lines, along with some ties, and on the back it would have a statement of evidence, essentially like an abstract of that corner from when it was originally set up until current times. So 21%, almost 22% of the corners in the county have those documents prepared. 11% of the total have those documents prepared with geodetic coordinates assigned to them. So this grant is meant to take the corners that you have in place and to create these documents that would both generate a geodetic coordinate on them and create all these statement evidence that would then go into the recorder's office, the public record for everyone to see. So the grant, there was $9.2 million approved to go for funding these grants. The grants can be made, requested by the county from $50,000 to $300,000. And the counties are going to be selected, so there'll be an application process, but they're also ranking the counties based off their county revenues and the percent of corners that are certified with corners. So what they want to do is get the money out to counties where the need is based off revenues and what their existing PLSS records look like. So the grant is applicable for two types of funds. The first type is to remonument or put corners in the ground and create the section corner certificates that I had talked about. There's also a type 2 grant, which is for making those records available to the public. So it's going to involve scanning. Here's an old county survey field book from about 1920. So we have a lot of section corner records scanned already. As part of this project, we really took a look with the recorder's office, the highway engineer's office, and have found additional survey records that we would then scan and make available to the public as part of this grant also. So I would recommend the board apply for the $300,000 as part of this grant, and we would handle both, or we would do both type 1 and type 2 projects as part of this grant. And what it's going to do is just provide additional funding. We already have a remonumentation program in place for the county, which we've been doing along with the county highway regrade projects. What this will do is give us additional funding so that we can get more corners done. Additional funding so we can get, and the goal of the state is to have counties fully remonumented would be the ultimate goal of the state with these grants. So like I said, I would recommend the board to approve going for $300,000 in the grant. Part of that, we would need you to authorize our Property and Public Services Department to submit that application on behalf of the county, and then to have the director of the Property and Public Services be the fiscal agent to control the money for the grant, the inflows and outflows of that. I would also ask that you would name me as the county survey representative for the fulfillment of the grant. And then also we would need approval from the board to accept the grant monies if we're selected.
And all that information is contained in the resolution.
Yes, yep.
I'd open up the floor for consideration for Resolution 2024-5.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to approve Resolution 2024-5.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on Resolution 2024-5. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any questions?
Yeah, so when I look at this map, I'm not real clear which ones are the ones you found. Is it the red ones you found or the blue ones?
The red ones are corners that have corner certificates without a coordinate. So there's a record in your packet, I believe you have the statement of evidence. So these would have a corner certificate, but they do not have coordinates. They call them geodetic coordinates. What they want is at the state level, they want coordinates that they can use to build GIS. So now these corner positions can be used to build, we do our property boundaries, but the state will use them for their work too. So they want good geodetic coordinates on these corners. So the reds would have the corner certificates without a coordinate assigned to it. The blue dots are considered complete by the state as part of this grant. So they have the corner certificate with good geodetic coordinates on them. And then the smaller gray dots are section corners that do not have corner certificates prepared.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt, it sounded like I heard you, excuse me. I thought I heard you say that the state wants all of these corners done. Do you anticipate that the amount of this grant will get that done here in Candiota County?
No, this grant, looking at what it is, the grant for this amount, by the time we do the type 1 and type 2, I would expect to get about 100 of these corners done for that grant amount. So you're to completely remonument the county, you're looking at, the state's gonna have to continue to provide this funding to get it done. So part of this work is, working with Mel's and actually excavating or digging for those original corners, and roads. Like I say, trying to get back to those original stakes. And some corners gonna have information where we won't have to go to that, where we have enough historical evidence that shows that the existing monument's in the right place, but it's a big undertaking to certify these to what they're looking for.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair. Yep.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, you said approximately 100. Roughly what percent of that would be done now with that?
When
Just a
we get to
guesstimate.
I would say, just roughly guessing, by the time, once we go through and look at each individual corner, we can determine which ones need to be excavated for. Some may have culverts or other cuts in the road or something where we feel that the original evidence would be gone, where they're not worth going. But I would guess 60%, something like that.
I would, may I follow up? Yeah. I would guess it'd be a pretty competitive grant. We're not alone in this county with the number of points that need to be marked correctly.
Correct, yes. And I think a lot of the counties down towards the cities, a lot of those are fully remonumented. They have large county survey departments. So I think, to the east around the metro area, they're pretty well monumented. Where Candioi County will have is some of the counties in southwest Minnesota where there is no county surveyor and hasn't been probably since the Great Depression, and maybe lower revenues may have a higher priority. But I think we're still sitting, we should still be okay compared to other counties. So yeah, you just hope there's enough money to make it to our project, so.
Sure. Commissioner Dale Anderson.
Is there any matching part of this, or is this just fully
Good question.
grant money that we're going to get with no match tied to it?
There's no match tied to this grant. Yep. And the reason for that is they feel the counties that need the help aren't going to be able to come up with a match. So yeah, this is a full grant, no match.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you very much.
I'm kind of impressed, actually, that the State Surveyors Group, they brought this to the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, I think, 2 years ago. Maybe it's 3 now. Yeah, it's probably 3. And we're stressing the need for the documentation of these corners. And then it'll be 2 years in May, part of that group came to Spicer and held an informational meeting. When we went out in the field, we actually located one of these monuments. It was really an interesting process. You were there that day.
Yes, yep, the old stone
And
corner.
Dwayne did
Yep.
a very nice presentation for those that were in attendance. So I'm quite impressed that they were able to get this far this fast, because usually it doesn't seem to move that well. So any other comments or questions? All in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Matt.
All right, thank you.
Next up, Planning Commission recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Eric Van Dyken here before you today, County Zoning Administrator. I have 3 action item requests pursuant to the meeting of the Planning Commission from February 12th, last week, Monday. 3 separate requests came before the Planning Commission at that time. All 3 of them are of a similar nature. All 3 are 1 megawatt community solar garden facilities. The first that I would ask for your consideration of is for Novel Energy Solutions. This is on Chuck and Jerry Ladebor property, just west of Princeburg, right along Chatumba Creek. The Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval of it with 3 attached conditions. And the findings, as you see in the minutes, I'll note that proposed condition number 3, I have had recent conversation with the project proponent, who does believe that they will be avoiding entirely any of the city of Prindsburg's infrastructure there. Matter of fact, he informed me today that they should have a surveying crew out there identifying those infrastructure pipelines this morning, I believe. And so they'll be working to identify those and avoid them. And so with that, those notes, those three conditions and the findings, staff does recommend approval as per the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
So you heard the recommendation from staff on the novel Ladybor application. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve with the three conditions and the 8 findings.
Okay, Commissioner Berg moves on the conditional use permit application. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So have you talked with like the new drainage inspector and asked about like if there's any county tile on that property and?
Well, I have his maps, and so I have consulted the map to make sure that there's no county tile in that area.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next application is a very similar application, same company, Novel Energy Solutions. This one's just a little bit east of Prindsburg, about 2 miles. It is proposed to be located on Don Post property. This one was recommended for approval as well, and this one has a third condition that is different than the first kind of maybe typical 2 that we have been putting on some of these, and this one has a proposed screening planting on the west side. We have been doing that on some of these ones where, well, maybe it's close to a city. We did some screening on a facility up near Raymond. We've had some screening on one near Lake Lillian where a residence comes into play a little bit more. And this one also had a request for some screening. I actually already have the plan that this condition is asking for. The applicant has already come up with a plan and submitted it, and I'm just asking for one little more specific tweak about the height of the proposed trees so that we can kind of have that memorialized, and otherwise they have submitted a plan that's commensurate with what the requirement is there. So with those 3 attached conditions and the findings, as you see in the minutes, staff recommends approval.
So you heard staff recommendation on the conditional use permit for Novel Energies and Post. How do you wish to act?
I'll make a motion that we approve the application
Commissioner Dwayne.
with the conditions and findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on the application. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any discussion?
I should ask this, did you check on that too with, okay. And then I have one other comment. I hope people are reading the fine print of their contracts that they do these with, because I talked to somebody that did it and he said he probably wouldn't do it again because they weren't paying rent on it when they told him to not plant it or whatever. And so he kind of had to go around with them a little bit. But I don't know if it was the same company or not, but I just hope people are reading the contracts that they sign, so.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And our third conditional use permit is very similar. This one might be a extension type of thing, isn't it?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. Thank you. The third request in front of you today then is from Nokomis Energy, and this is on Dave and Jolene Rushin property. It's just we're swinging from Prindsburg back to the west again. We're right along the Chippewa County line. This one is a proposal that has previously been approved. We've run into this a little bit more with some of the solar facilities for for better or worse, they've had some struggle in the solar energy industry overall. A couple things have tended to hold them up a little bit. There's been supply chain issues around the panels themselves. And then there have been some issues around getting their interconnection, grid connection agreements with Xcel Energy. They've taken some time, I think, to negotiate and finalize some of those. So this is another situation where we've had a proposal, it was approved, they went through a year, they have not utilized it. In order to maintain their authorization, they have to get reauthorized. And so that's what this one does represent. So the findings and conditions are exactly the same as their original approval in 2023. And so staff recommends that those be readopted.
You heard a recommendation from staff to essentially allow the extension of this application. How do you wish to proceed?
I'll move that we approve this based on, or with the conditions and findings.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves. Do I hear a second? The chair will second that. Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, community correction update from Tammy Jo Lieberg, Corrections Director. Welcome. You brought your staff along.
I did. Good morning. Tammy Jo Lieberg, Community Corrections. I couldn't put it on the agenda what we had because it wasn't announced yet when the agenda came out. So what I'm actually here to do, it's my honor to discuss with you and share with you that Crystal Roloffs was given an award last week at our Minnesota Community Corrections Agent Conference. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on it, and then we're going to let you talk to Crystal a little bit so she can tell you. So it's the Lifetime Achievement Award, which sound like she even said, oh my gosh, does it mean I'm retiring? No, that's not what it actually is. The requirements of this award said that you have to, the individual that was nominated had to have 15 years of exemplary service in a community corrections agency. It also said that you had to have a strong understanding of evidence-based practices and willing to show implementation of those evidence-based practices and community involvement. Our agent conference is exactly what it sounds like, right? It's an agent conference. Many of you have attended our Minnesota Community Corrections Association annual conference in September each year, where we have county commissioners and directors and supervisors that attend. The agent conference in February is for probation officers across the state. The directors attend and participate in some of the trainings, but it's really mostly for our agents. The awards that are given are peer-to-peer awards. So I wanted to give you that background of the fact that it takes a peer to nominate. I don't even get to vote on this award, by the way. This is like, it's all done on the side. And so that's why I think this is especially super special for Crystal to have been nominated by one of our staff for a Lifetime Achievement Award and then recognized by other directors in the state that voted to make sure that she got this award above all of the other individuals in the state. So, Crystal Roloffs, Deputy Director, Community Corrections, is this year's Lifetime Achievement Award winner.
Congratulations, Crystal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did you have an acceptance speech that you'd like?
I didn't have a clue.
So,
I did not have any idea. I was surprised. I said, am I old enough to get this?
Oh, you need one more picture?
Shelby's looking for
Yes.
Shelby was waiting.
Yeah.
So congratulations, and we'll challenge you with your extemporaneous speaking abilities here, being you weren't prepared. So congratulations, it's a really cool deal.
Well, I'll help out a little bit. So can you tell us, how long have you been at Candido High Community Corrections?
So I've been with Community Corrections here for 23 years. Prior to that, I clerked with the court administration for 6 years with the judges before that. So I've been with Kansas County a long time. I'm very thankful for all of the opportunities that Kansas County has given me. I don't think I would be in this position if I wouldn't have had directors and good staff around me that gave me opportunities to try everything I've ever wanted to try. So it's very humbling, but I'm very thankful.
She has been, our CSTS, our computer program administrator. She has been instrumental in implementing our evidence-based practices across our department. And she has been involved in the community in things like being on the board of Safe Avenues and different things. So there's lots and lots of things we could go through, but just to give you just a little bit of an idea of some of the reasons she's being honored at the state level today.
I started with a driver's license return program, so I don't know if anybody remembers what that was, but it was a restorative justice program to help people get their license and get jobs and just get back on their feet. And from there, Deb said, okay, Crystal, you started this, here's evidence-based practices, go figure out what it is. And so, just to be able to grow that over the last 15 years has just been great. And then when Tammy Jo came on board, she's been helping put the wheels and get the rock moving, and we've just been able to make good strides and hopefully can continue to do a lot of good things.
Well, again, thank you very much for all the work you do. And
Very proud.
all right, next up, we have another resolution. Resolution 2024-6, approving the town road account allocation.
Chair, members of the board, I'm Mel Odens, Public Works Director, Kandiyohi County. What you have is Resolution 2024-6, and it's a pass-through money that goes through the county, and then we write checks to all the townships in our county. And so this year's amount is $552,979. It is a increase of 12.74%. And it's been steadily going up every year. And we do graph it, just so you do know, we did have one spike where the legislature in 2022 gave us a spike of $12 million to be distributed to the townships, but that was a 1 year kind of a post-COVID thing, ARPA thing. But with that in mind, this is used at their discretion. This is not projects that we need to approve on a state aid level or a county engineering level. This is just the distribution per township that we pass through to the county. So it's staff recommendation to approve this resolution and authorize the administrator and the chair to sign on behalf of the county.
So you heard the recommendations for staff approving the town road account allocation. How do you wish to proceed on resolution 2024-6?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we pass Resolution 2024-6.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on 2024-6. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mel, there's a formula, I presume, that
Yeah.
governs all of this distribution?
So it's 60% of the road miles in the township and then 40% by population. And the road miles get certified every year by me. And so they have to be traversable for 8 months out of the year. And so what we do is all the townships submit their road miles to me. I certify them all. And then I submit that to the state. And then consequently, that's the formula that we use in Kandiyohi County. There is some options to that, but this is universally the largest method of 60% road miles, 40% population.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? The source of this funding, is this bonding dollars or is this the highway user tax?
It's highway user tax.
Formula,
Yep.
which is also a formula and a very complex one. But bottom line is a percent of the all money that goes into that formula goes to small towns and townships.
Right.
So.
Yep. There's a 5% that they pull off to fund these programs.
Yep.
Yep.
So it doesn't add up to a lot, but every bit helps
Correct. Yeah.
when you break it down between 24 townships. So all in favor of resolution 2024-6 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, next up, Kelsey Baker, the county administrator, on a My Town video story request for consideration.
Good morning, Kelsey Baker, Kandiyohi County Administrator. As the chair mentioned, I'm asking for a recommendation for approval for $1,000 to go to the Wilmer Community Area Foundation. Candioi County, the city of Wilmer has been selected for a Rule by Choice YouTube series. And so I think this is really exciting. I've learned about this through the Vision 2040 committee, which Commissioner Dwayne Anderson and I sit on. I think this will really showcase City of Wilmer and Candioi County. And so they're asking for $1,000 to go towards the $30,000 total that they would need to help showcase the county and the city. So I'm asking for approval, if that would be okay. We would take it out of 880 department, which is the miscellaneous department. It's really a department that's kind of ran by the Board of Commissioners. And so I would just pull the $1,000 from the miscellaneous professional services line item.
So you heard the request from staff. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I will move approval of the request.
Commissioner Gardner moves approval of the request for $1,000 for the My Town video story. Do I hear a second?
I will second it. Commissioner Berg?
Commissioner Berg, thank you. Any comments or questions?
He was first, I think.
Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelsey, the idea is that this is not just Wilmer-centric, but it's across the entire county as well, that it's the county
Correct.
that is being spotlighted.
Correct. It's Candioi County / City of Wilmer. They'll probably focus on some of the business aspects of within the City of Wilmer, but then they'll focus on the tourism and what a great place to live and work for Candioi County.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. When are they supposed to be starting with this? Or are they starting soon, right?
Yes, they're going to hopefully start filming this spring, and then it would air in the fall.
Okay, because Bethel Church is having somebody to come to video, and I was wondering if that was part of that real soon, so.
It could
but
be.
We
I
certainly
know.
want to be part of this and partake in this, and it sounds like there's a good group already that's donated, so terrific. We can
Other
promote our
questions?
community, that's great.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Administrator Baker, do you know if the EDC and the Wilmer Lakes Area Tourism Committee have been approached with this request?
I don't know if other individual businesses or entities have been asked to provide this, but I'm guessing this letter went to those entities.
Okay, thank you. So
Mr. Chair, yeah, I was under the impression quite a few
Yes.
organizations have been approached.
okay. So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And you're up on the next agenda too regarding the Big Candy East Park update.
Correct. So Kelsey Baker, Candioi County Administrator. I was asked by the board chair to bring an update forth for this meeting, and we haven't had a whole lot to report on, other than what was reported on October 17th, 2023, when the chair read a statement regarding this park. We still are working with the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council on working on an agreement. That agreement, I'm hoping will be presented to the board at the March 20th meeting. I'm sorry, March 19th. I always say March 20th. It's my nephew's birthday. March 19th meeting. But the Public Works team and myself just met last Friday regarding kind of the draft agreement. I'm hoping then I'll sit down with the park managers and the two park committee commissioners, and then we'll present that agreement. But I think there's two entities or two situations that we're dealing with this park, and the one is the maintenance agreement moving forward, and then the other is the DNR grant that we received, Mel, help me out, 3 years ago? 2 years ago? So we received a DNR grant 2 years ago in hopes of the bathhouse, and that's when all these cultural resource surveys kind of came about. And that grant needs to be used by June 30th, 2024. And so kudos to Jeremy Pfeiffer, our assistant county engineer. He's really been in the weeds working with the DNR on this grant. And so we're hopefully going to find ways to utilize these funds. However, we're hitting some roadblocks with the maintenance agreement that we are kind of tied to now moving forward with, and we want a positive working relationship with MIAC. So this project still is ongoing. We don't have a completion. I would say even when the board approves this maintenance agreement, this project isn't over. Will be an ongoing maintenance agreement project. This will be an ongoing discussion with the board. I would just ask for respect and time when the staff are trying to figure out how we go about the maintenance as well, because we're also dealing with a lot of the public and the campers. and the park managers on how we can still utilize this park to the best of our abilities.
Thank you. Any questions? I appreciate the update because we have been hearing, rumors that there's a possibility it would have to be closed, so you can squash that, correct? That park will not have to be closed as a result of the mini.
No, not to our knowledge.
And reservations are being taken as of the reservation
Yep.
date about a month ago or so. Now, the agreement that we're working towards, is it just finalizing the language, or do we have a memorandum of understanding about what is going to be? 'Cause I suspect that the county's not going to have a lot of say-so in how it ends up, because Minnesota Indian Affairs Council pretty much has a plan that they have to follow, or do follow, I should say.
Right, I think as we said in, what I put in the board packet, and I think the statement still holds true, is to be respectful of the land.
Right.
And I think that is where I want to be careful. And so kudos to Todd Miller, our supervisor under Public Works. He has really been working with the park managers on literally everything we do preseason and postseason. How far do we dig in the ground for this? How far do we dig in the ground for that? And so that's where I want to make sure that we have covered our bases as for county employees and for the county as the employer as well and the owner of the property. But then I also want to make sure that we are covering our bases with the park managers and all of their duties and having that understanding within this agreement. So that's why I've just been treading lightly. I want to make sure that this agreement is true to what we do. And so when I bring that to the board, we're fully ready.
Thank you. And I know that there was a lot of consternation, but this kind of stuff happens all the time in public work. That happens in roads, it happens in other counties. Obviously, Chippewa County is a good example, in Yellow Medicine, where they've had. So, as the administrator says, we have to be respectful of what the regulations and the laws are, and work within the boundaries that we have. So, thanks for that.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
just a
go
quick question. And we understand, and just to clarify for the public too, is this includes the entire Kansas County Park, right? It's not just one area of the park.
Correct, the entire, yes,
All
the
the land, so
entire,
it's not like we can go do something.
yes, the entire parcel
quite a-
that's within
quite a
the
bit of
park. Yep.
Land there that
Yep.
we're looking at, so, but great. We want, like you said, be respectful, and that's so important. It would be interesting to hear even more stories about that area back, and from the history of it, so, thank you.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
Yeah, so I got kind of a comment. So this whole process, one of the hard parts about it was we had to respect what MIAC wanted to say. And part of that was that they were asking us to kind of not say a whole lot about it till we could kind of come in agreement with them and us on how to manage the park and going forward. So that was why a lot of times we weren't really saying a whole lot, because we really didn't know how it was going to turn out at the time.
So, but with reservations opening up, we have to
Yep.
walk that line, and now it's a good time for an update, so. All right, thank you very much for that update. Next up is the Kansas County Justice Involved Opioid Response and Prevention Network Grant Update, a mouthful. Caroline Kahn from Health and Human Services, Tammy Jo Lieberg from Community Corrections, welcome. And even though I've just introduced you, for the record, do it again, please.
Just one moment, please.
Hold on, give me a second.
Well, we'll go ahead with those introductions. So good morning, I'm Caroline Kahn. I have the opportunity to serve as the Health and Human Services Director for Candy, Ojai County.
Good morning, Tammy Jo Lieberg, Community Corrections Director, again, this morning.
Still. So, well, this morning we wanted to come and provide an update on a grant that we collectively worked across departments within the county to provide an update on the vision of this grant and where we're at today. So just a little, you want to click that? This grant that we've called our Justice Involved Opioid Response and Prevention Network is a grant that's provided through the Department of Human Services under the Opioid Epidemic Response Advisory Council, otherwise known as ORAC. Our grant proposal team consisted of Candy Ojai County Sheriff Eric Tollefson, Candy Ojai County Attorney Shane Baker, Candy Ojai County Community Corrections Director Tammy Joe, Candy Ojai County Administrator Kelsey Baker, and then Candy Ojai County Health and Human Services staff Corinne Torkelson, our Adult Mental Health and Adult Protection Supervisor, and myself. So this team met and really hashed out a lot of different variations of what this vision could look like that we'll share later. But I really want to give kudos and highlight the ability to step into this team at the last part of the grant process, and just as a new team member to Candy Ojai County, to see all of these various departments working together to collectively solve and hopefully enhance the way that we serve our community was a great highlight for me as a new Candy Ojai County team member. So our grant proposal was to enhance our rural justice coordination and community response to opioid misuse as well as mental health issues. The proposal included adding 2 critical staff positions to address substance use and opioid use, as well as provide case management for individuals involved in drug offenses. This proposal would involve the addition of 2 new team members to Candy Ojai County, one that would be in the community corrections role, as well as one that would be in the Health and Human Services Department. These positions will work closely with the involved departments and a multidisciplinary team to establish an early engagement framework for substance use and mental health related encounters and provide coordinated services overall with the hopes of reducing our justice involvement. The application was submitted for the following category under our workforce development and training and treatment of opioid use disorders, or OUD. We have requested just under $800,000 to be utilized over a 3-year period to begin in 2024. The funding will be used to support the newly established positions, community assessments, community advisory network meetings, trainings, translation services, and other infrastructure needs as it relates to OUD supports.
We're going to switch off here, and I want to mention right off the bat that this is a project that we've been working on for actually the last couple of years in varying different forms. But interestingly enough, as Caroline's talked about how she was excited to join our team, I have to tell you that in her first week, she's the one that actually wrote this grant. So she jumped on board and took the initiative to do great things within our first couple days. So wanted to provide that information. So this project, like she said, is going to have 2 positions. It's going to be a 2-prong approach, looking at how do we address mental health issues within our mental health and chemical dependency issues within our communities. It's specific idea is to address some of the gaps that we see, using social worker to address mental health issues that might not have risen to the level of a criminal offense at the social services. So that person will be hopefully providing coordination and specific like referrals and different things, and helping provide services to individuals in the community that are maybe having a chemical dependency or mental health crisis in our community, but have not become involved in the criminal justice system. The second piece of this is having a social worker position in our probation department that will, again, address those critical mental health, chemical dependency issues, hopefully to reduce recidivism. Our vision for this is to really have somebody be able to be at the jail or in the community with law enforcement officers to get to this on a really fast basis. Because we know a lot of times our individuals that we see they decompose when they hit the jail system, and they're actually have worse symptoms when they're in our jails and create a lot more problems. So if we can address that earlier, the better off we are. So our short-term goals are coordinating efforts to minimize the impact of substance use issues in various sectors of the county, identify current services and assess those services, analyze the gaps and formulate educational components for it. Extend our partnerships. As you can see from what Caroline talked about, is we are looking at this across the board with jail staff, social services, probation, law enforcement, all the way across the board. How can we coordinate to make sure that we provide better services very quickly to individuals in a mental health or chemical dependency crisis? And also make sure that we identify these ways in a culturally appropriate and sensitive manner. Our long-term goals really are to reduce recidivism and incarceration rates for people that are involved in the criminal justice system with mental health needs and substance abuse, provide early engagement, and establish well-functioning community-based responses. We really looked at programs across the state that were early to identify these issues in terms of how can we look at people when, and help provide services when they're in that crisis mode. So it was very important to look at a variety of different counties and places, Washington County, Ramsey County, Dakota. We've gone and looked at multiple different programs of how they've identified the use of mental health, chemical dependency social workers in their community to bring that forward. So, by addressing substance abuse and mental health issues proactively and collaboratively, we hope this project will pave the way for lasting positive change in our county's justice and social services units. Is there any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So it's to hire 2 positions
That's
over a 3-year period. Is this grant going to be renewable then, or how do we do that after that 3-year period? What do we do with those?
Yeah, this grant, if we're successful during that period of time and with all of the components, that we would have the opportunity to reapply, and so it would be renewable at that time, potentially.
All right.
So maybe I should open up the floor for a motion on the recommendation from staff.
Mr. Chair, I so move that, on this motion I move a motion to move forward with this grant.
Commissioner Berg moves on staff recommendations for the grant application. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Berg.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's exciting to see this kind of collaboration to take place in the county. I mean, this is really good news to hear things like this are happening. And this is a priority in mental health when it comes to Candido County. We have mental health, broadband, housing, childcare is right in there. But to see us to work together, it's more than a partnership where I hear. It's really collaboration. And I have a couple other, another question though, is that are there any other additional costs meantime to the county? And then another question I had, is this going to be hard to hire somebody not knowing because they're on a grant if that will be continued or not?
I think that there's a lot of appetite and excitement for roles like this. So I anticipate that we'll have a lot of interest in taking these. Obviously, the grant portion of it is something that applicants will be considerate of, if it's an internal, like, do I want to change my seat on the bus and take a chance? We're committed to the work that's being done here, and how can we balance that in the overall work that we do, and having the opportunity to, have 3+ years to see how that might fit and reduce costs overall too, and continue to track that as we move forward. I apologize, that was the second part of your question.
Well, and I'll just add too, there is a lot of excitement because not only in social services, but in probation as well, about the idea of having the opportunity to do something different that might help address. There is a lot of excitement of existing staff. There's a lot of discussion from outside of our agencies. I do feel that this is going to be, we're going to have great options for hiring in this position.
And as well as additional costs, those were built into the grant. So such as like technology needs and different things, and dollars to help host our community framework sessions. Through some of our other opioid dollars, we're going to work collectively and collaboratively in one congruent fashion forward. So this is an ideal time as we continue to look at how we're going to utilize our other opioid dollars to really elevate all of these opportunities at one time and move in one direction to better Candido County. So.
Quick question, Administrator Baker, too. We got additional dollars for opioid than we expected or not? Just the same amount we talked about?
Correct. The same amount that we've received has not changed.
Okay.
This was an opportunity, and I think the chair mentioned this to me, but it was, I will say, very good job to the 2 people at the podium. Because, and Shane and Eric, this was a scramble. I mean, this wasn't just something like, oh, we had 6 months to work on this. It wasn't. We needed letters of support. There was a lot of detailed information that we needed. But this is a different pot of money with the opioid dollars through the state. The opioid settlement dollars that we have received, that has not changed.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
if you recall, there was some frustration by at least 3 counties in the state of Minnesota that because of the formula for the opioid settlements.
Yes, that's what I was
Nobles
wondering.
County, us, and I forget the third one, ended up with being, quite frankly, shortchanged on the opiate settlement. So this ORIC grant was something that I learned at the Association of Minnesota Counties meeting when we had that discussion about the inequity for 3 counties, that Julie Ring, our executive director, brought to our attention. And so congratulations. I do have a couple of other questions as long as I currently have the floor. So as we know it now, there won't be any levy dollars used in this, at least in the first 3 years, and we don't know beyond that. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay. And then, and Tammy Jo, you use this evidence-based practices term enough that I finally learned it. So are we gonna, is there a level of measurement that we're gonna
There
have to
is.
determine success, like a baseline for where we're at now, and then 2.5 years or so as we get to the end of this first 3 years?
So we built some of those levels of measurement right into this grant process, but we will also do some of our internal tracking of statistics and so forth, that hopefully we'll be able to come back at a later date and say, this is what this program was capable of doing, and this is how we achieved success, with actual numbers, showing how many people we were able to hopefully improve their lives or change the trajectory of where things were going when they were in a crisis.
And have you yet identified any of those measurements? And can you give us an example of a couple of things you might track? Like, are they still using, you know the conditions that you have to worry
Yeah,
about.
so back to what you were saying, Roger, in terms of evidence-based practices, what we're really, really looking at is how do we show that what we're doing has a positive impact and bringing those forward. And so some of that we'll design as we go. Some of it is really back to how many people can we, just tracking numbers of how many people are we going to meet with, how many people that were in the jail that might have had to stay in the jail that we were able to provide services to, how many referrals did we make, but also some long-term traffic tracking that we'll design as we go.
Very good. Any other questions or comments?
I got one other question.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So since it's opioid response, is it just people that were involved with opioids, or does it track other, are you going to be dealing with people that use other drugs, or is it just strictly opioids, or how does that work?
The opioid response is the main part of it, but we know, like we've talked about many, many times, is that it's really hard to distinguish. When somebody has a chemical dependency problem, sometimes they might use opioids, some days they might use methamphetamine, sometimes they're mixing them, believe it or not. And so it isn't just opioids, it's an opioid chemical dependency mental health response.
Okay.
Because a mental health crisis, a chemical dependency crisis will also put them at risk. Even if they're not currently using, it puts them at risk to use opioids in the future. So the majority of the people that we're working with are going to be in some way, shape, or form opioid addicts, but at the same time, we also know that there's at-risk individuals that are going to be serviced or provided services through this grant.
Okay, so it is a little flexible that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Good question. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tammy Jo, I just wanted to thank you for highlighting the work that Caroline did on writing the grant. I appreciated hearing that, and I just wanted to say I'm not the least bit surprised that she was able to dive right into that. So thank you.
And I'm not even remotely kidding you. I think it was like day 2, we said, somebody has to write this grant, and she jumped in.
Well done, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you very much for that informative update. We look forward to hearing progress reports as it gets implemented and moves forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we vote?
I'll get there. We, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Caroline, you have a reschedule request?
Correct. Do you- Okay. I didn't know if I had to reintroduce myself. So, At our January 16th meeting where we discussed our Health and Human Services Committee, we had discussed having the date of that first work session as of today. Coming to you today to request that reschedule due to the AMC Legislative Conference and the attendance of you all there. So just looking to have the opportunity to take some time to reschedule and who I should work with to do that, if I can work directly with Administrator Kelsey Baker, or if I should work with you, Mr. Chair, or the collection to set that date. The next board meeting is March 5th. Unfortunately, numerous of my supervisors already have some things scheduled following the board meeting that date. The next opportunity would be March 19th. Again, just looking for the opportunity to reschedule that to a later date that works better for the commissioners' schedules.
So before we, it's March 19th is our regular board meeting, which
Correct.
is how we were going to do it the first time. How much time are we to allocate? So is
About
this
2
like an
hours after the board
So
meeting.
it'd probably be an after-lunch thing, depending upon
Or-
what we have on the agenda.
Correct. We were considering doing a bit of an opening, provide a lunch, and then continue working through that.
Sure. So it's something that's already scheduled, but sometimes we keep our afternoons, we think our afternoons are available for going back to personal business, but on this day, you might want to consider a 2 o'clock. So do we need a motion for that? I don't think we can just do that. Put it on
Okay.
the agenda.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right,
Forward to it. Thank you.
thank you for the update.
Thank you.
March 20th or 19th?
The 19th. I always
Okay.
say the 20th. That's my fault.
Commissioner Gardner, you,
5 minutes?
we will take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
We'll reconvene the Kennewick County Board of Commissioners. Up next is I crossed one, Chris Wenich. Good. Welcome. Come on up to the podium and state your name and what you do.
All right, thank you. I'm Chris Wenish. I work with the Environmental Health Program within Public Health here at Kennewick County. So just doing a little bit of I guess a review of what our program does. I think some of you commissioners are relatively new, so you may not know exactly what our Environmental Health Program does. So the bulk of our work is related to our licensing and inspections for food, pools, and lodging services. So we have a delegated program. We're delegated through Minnesota Department of Health to, as a CHB with Renville County, to license and inspect all the food, lodging, manufactured home parks, recreational camping areas, and public swimming pools in the 2 counties. So we have 2 full-time inspectors. One's based out of Kennewick County, one's based out of Renville County, and then the Renville County spends some time up here because of our the amount of establishments we have licensed in Kennewick County. There's 273 establishments altogether that we license with our CHB. 200 of those are in Kennewick, and 73 are down in Renville. Along with the inspections that we do for all these facilities, we inspect every place at least once a year. We also do plan reviews, so any of these facilities that are doing any construction, remodeling, they have to submit plans to our department first, and we review those, approve those, and before they can begin any of their construction. And then we do final inspections before we license them. We also assist the Minnesota Department of Health in investigations for potential foodborne and waterborne illness outbreaks. We work with the MDH's epidemiology department on those when those come up. With those licensed facilities that I mentioned, we also have a delegated non-community public water source program. So any of those facilities that have their own private wells, we are out there doing water sampling, testing for bacteria and nitrates each year. And then we're following all the requirements that the EPA has for sanitary surveys, which we have to do every 3 years on those. So if they have a private well, like at a resort or something like that, we're taking a look at a 200-foot radius around those wells and identifying any potential contamination sources and documenting those and getting those taken care of. So what else? So last year, 2023, with those 273 licensed establishments, we did 331 inspections with our program, and that was being shorthanded the majority of the year. We were down 1 inspector with Renville County, so we were able to still maintain our inspection numbers through the year, which is good. We have a new inspector coming on board now next week, so we should get some relief there. Besides the FPL program, we also manage and enforce the tobacco ordinance, the tobacco sales ordinance for our county. So we have 37 licensed tobacco facilities in our county. We do tobacco compliance checks each year on those, every establishment. So in 2023, we had just 2 sales within our Kennewick County, which is pretty good. Those are pretty good numbers. With our environmental health program, we enforce the public health nuisance law. So that shouldn't be confused with our nuisance ordinance for the county. The nuisance ordinance is regulated with environmental services downtown. So the public health nuisance law is a state statute, 145A. So that would be things that are more inside the home rather than nuisances outside. So we're looking at kind of, if you want to call them garbage houses or homes that may have an extraordinary amount of animals inside, maybe, 100 cats, 50 dogs, rat infestation, stuff like that. So we're enforcing that that law here for our county. And then we also just do general environmental health education for the public too. So anything with radon, we have free radon test kits at our office here that we give out to the public, just education on mold if you have questions, vector-borne diseases, bed bugs, drinking water quality, stuff like that. So kind of a variety of different things. You guys have any questions at all about the environmental health program or anything that we do?
I'm sure there are, but before we do, I want to give a shout out to you for, we had a Kaneohe County Renville Community Health Board meeting last week, and Commissioner Snow was very, very thankful for you kind of stepping in and filling in those voids that they had last year. And I see your numbers, you've been able to maintain them, so you've been working overtime the way it looks to me, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any questions for Commissioner Berg?
Just clarifications. So there's just 3 of you doing all this?
Two
2 of you doing all
two
this?
full-time inspectors, yeah.
Yeah, wow. You're very busy. Thank you
Gardner.
for the great job you're doing. A person forgets without hearing these kind of reports, very positive that we are, as 2 counties, working together to see that things are safe for the people who live here and all the different areas you cover. I mean, forget about that. Appreciate the
And, having a delegated program too, I think it has a lot of value to the public and to our owners of these establishments. So, if you don't have a delegated program, the Minnesota Department of Health would be the ones that would be licensing these establishments and doing the inspections. And I think having this delegated program here locally, we are able to respond faster. We can build relationships with all the business owners out there. So it's not just us going out and handing down fines and stuff like that. We're working with them, we're spending the time with them, we're trying to educate them and stuff and with the food code and stuff like that. And I think through the years, we've built a lot of trust with that. So they're contacting us with questions. If they do contact us, we can respond, within 24 hours. I mean, that's what our goal is. If they were with the state and getting licensed, we hear a lot of stories about it takes weeks for anyone to even give a call back. So I think it's very nice to have a delegated program.
May I just follow up with one question?
Sure.
So some of these inspections are, some are appointments and some are surprise type of inspections as well?
The majority of them are all our routine inspections are unannounced. So we're just stopping out and we're doing just unannounced inspections. The ones that we will make an appointment with, maybe sometimes we may have some difficulties with some establishments. They need a little more work, so we might go ahead and schedule something like a reinspection to come out and help them out and stuff like that. Or anytime, obviously, we do a plan review inspection, those are all scheduled and stuff. But otherwise, a routine inspection is unannounced.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, thank you for, again, all the work that you're doing on this. You also handle special event licensing. Can you tell us and the public what that is, and I'll have a follow-up?
Yeah, thanks. The special event licenses, so anytime that you serve food to the public, so a public event, so it might be a fundraiser where they're maybe serving some hot dogs at a game or something, or maybe it's at the fair, a booth selling food at the fair. So if you don't have an actual restaurant license, you need to get a special event food stand license. So that's you're allowed 10 days in a calendar year, and you can just get a permit for that one day to sell food.
So maybe community organizations, churches, that potentially that type of thing?
Yes, yeah, I mean, there is some exemptions with churches and serving food on church property, but yeah, so all those other fundraisers, like maybe the booster club for a school wants to do, sell some barbecues to earn some extra money for a sport or something, but yeah.
Sure. And
Boy
then,
Scouts.
thank you. And then, Caroline, do I recall when we had the meeting the other day, was there some concern at the state level regarding licensing on these special events?
Oh.
Do I recall that? Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the state has a statute that there's a hospitality fee. Okay, So all of our facilities that we license here, so what I was talking about before with the restaurants, hotels, all those. The state of Minnesota each year has all the local agencies send them a list of all the licensed facilities and the owners. And then the state will send out a fee, a hospitality fee bill to all these owners, and it's $40 each year. And part of that statute has been the special events are supposed to be included in that. So we are a delegated agency. We have a delegated contract with Minnesota Department of Health. Part of our program evaluation that we have each year, they look into how we're running our program. Are we getting our inspections done on time? And one of the things that they looked into heavily this year was, are you submitting that list each year to us for the hospitality fee? Okay. So they came down on all the local programs throughout the state for these special events that some programs may have forgotten to send to the state. And came down with enforcement and said, this is part of the delegation agreement, you need to send us the list of these owners. So with these special events, like I said, we're charging them $20 for a one-day event to sell some hot dogs as a fundraiser to make a little bit more money for their volleyball team or Boy Scouts. Now the state is going to go ahead, starting this year, and send out a bill to all these hockey moms, whatever they might be, for $40 that they're collecting as this hospitality fee, and they use the money for, I guess they say, technology for MDH to help their environmental health program, help delegated programs with training and stuff like that. So our fear here is that people that are doing the right thing and they're getting these special event food permits from us, and we're working with them so they can serve food safely to the public. And we're trying to keep their costs down by just, having small fees. Out of the blue now, each year they're gonna get this bill from the state for $40, and we're afraid that they're not gonna wanna go ahead and apply for these special event food permits anymore when they're getting this extra charge to them. So we were working with, I contacted Representative Baker to hopefully amend that statute and exempt special event applications from that. So, because we want people to still come to us and get these permits so we can make sure they're doing handling food safely for the public.
I appreciate that explanation, and I suspect that will be at least a topic of conversation at our meetings tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Berg.
I was just going to say, it's extremely timely to bring this up, because thank you. And when they want to put the $40 on that, are they saying anything about the size of the event? I mean, I could see possibly that they would say, well, over 400 people you're serving or something, that we would do this. So it's just across the board.
Nope, just, straight across the board. Yep.
So, I don't know if they still do it, but a few years ago at the Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center's Earth Day event, a 4-H club might be selling Rice Krispie bars or something to raise funds for the 4-H club. Is that included in this?
For the most part, there are a couple exemptions. So some bake sales, if you have baked goods that are wrapped and stuff, they're exempt. But if Prairie Woods is selling maybe some hot dogs or barbecues that day or something like that, then yes, that would be a special event. Yeah.
How about farmers markets?
Those have their own licensing.
Cottage food.
Unless somebody's out there serving prepared food, but anything like the cottage food rule with the canned goods and stuff, they have a whole separate set of rules.
So I'm always confused where the local public health department and Minnesota Department of Agriculture, where the lines are. So out at our place of business, you don't call on us. You don't check our well. You don't, check any kind of compliance with us. But for us, it's Minnesota Department of Agriculture. is there a general rule
Yeah,
of thumb?
yeah,
Is what,
so,
who does what?
The, if you're selling packaged foods, so like a grocery store, a convenience store, those are all gonna be licensed by Department of Agriculture. Also bakeries and meat markets. And so we are handling all the restaurants, bars, and pretty much that's it. Now, if we have a facility like some convenience stores will have, they'll have their packaged foods, which normally Egg would do, and then they also have maybe like a deli in there. Then what we do, rather than double license between the two agencies, we'll just figure out which section makes the most revenue, and then that agency will license the entire facility.
Okay.
So we don't double license anyone.
So you mentioned checking wells, and I just brought up wells at our place of business. You don't do private wells or residential wells?
Correct. Just the licensed facilities, yeah.
Okay.
Just the public, non-community water sources.
And then on manufactured homes, what do you, because the reason I bring that up is we had a situation in Northeast Candido County a few years ago. And I think both environmental services and you were involved in that particular one, but I don't know where one line, like a nuisance line, and that happened to be a manufactured home, but I did see a tag on the door that came from Department of Health.
Okay.
It's a number of years ago. I don't expect you to remember it, but at what point do you get called in? You mentioned, like rodents and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that situation, if I know what you're talking about, that was more not in a manufactured home park because each person owned their individual lot. So, so I think that was a public health nuisance issue. But so with our manufactured home parks, we are enforcing the state rules on those. So we're looking at spacing in those lots, making sure there's certain setbacks that have to be met for sheds and decks and stuff like that. We're looking for any harboring places for rodents and stuff like that. So we're looking at, they got a bunch of tires out there, garbage piled up, unlicensed vehicles, noxious weeds, stuff like that. So
if someone has a concern, do they call Gary at Environmental Services or do they call Chris at the Department of Health, Public Health? Yes.
if it's, yeah, well, call one of us. But yeah, if it's a licensed manufactured home park, call me. If it's something that would have to do with a nuisance ordinance, call Gary.
Okay. If it's tough.
Or you can just call Gary first no matter what, and he'll just push it to me.
Thank you very much.
We understand.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
I just want to again echo your statement from the CHB as to the incredible amount of work that Chris has done over this past year. I don't want to overshadow, you had mentioned with 2 people over this past year. Chris has really stepped up and provided a lot of support to our partner in our CHB of Renville County as they've gone through some staff transitions as well as leaves and different things. So the tremendous amount of work that you thought was 2 people was a lot of 1 for a good part of the year. So I just wanted to, again, extend some kudos to the work that he's done for our communities.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, next up, casework hosting agreement with Nobles County. Mr. Hovland. Or Hovland, I always say Hovland.
Good morning.
Morning.
Scott Hovland with Candido County IT Department. Just looking to get your approval on adding another county to our hosting platform for the CaseWorks application. You may be aware of what CaseWorks is. It's our Family Services Electronic Data Management System that we started in. We got on with CaseWorks and Next Chapter Technologies in 2015. And we started adding some other counties as a service to counties that maybe don't have an IT department, don't have the infrastructure, and just a collaborative effort to help out our neighbors. So we started with Rice County in 2017, and we've added several counties since then, Watonwan, Fillmore, Des Moines Valley, as such. And we have currently, Nobles County is asking to become part of our environment. And we've got a couple other that are also transitioning from other platforms that we are cautiously, we look at each one of these individually and decide whether we care to entertain. But that's where we're at today. And I've got a contract or an agreement with Nobles County that that I'd present before you today. So this electronic data management, does all their document workflow for income maintenance, child support, their MNsure, social services. Candido County doesn't use the accounting piece, but Caseworks does that, so some of the other counties do that. And then what we do with that, as far as an agreement, is we have a central server that we work very hard to keep secured. And it's actually not in our production environment, it sits sideways of it, so that's very apparent that we keep that very safe. We have limited access between counties, and so we spend a lot of time on onboarding, so we actually have a fee equivalent to about a year's worth of hosting as an onboarding fee, and then each module that they contract with us for. So if, let's say it's a county that's doing, it's a small county, and we stage that based on the size of the county, what they can afford. But they would pay $2,000, for instance, per module that they use in the system. And then we use that money then to buy the infrastructure and the consulting and the security based on that project.
So your request is to adopt this agreement with Nobles County?
Correct.
Scott? Any question, or I'll entertain a motion on the request from staff.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the recommendation of staff.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the recommendation from staff. Do I hear a second regarding the case hosting agreement with Nobles County? Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Scott, thank you for bringing this to us, and I think you addressed most of what I wanted to say already, but the ability to keep this all secure, and I assume this is kind of sequestered off from like our main servers, things like that.
Right. We are developing we've got or have developed a separate set of structure of infrastructure so that it keeps that. We limit which traffic can go back and forth. So not all of Candido County can even get to this. Only our social work or social services offices can get to it. And then amongst those other counties, they do the same thing, and we have a very controlled environment back and forth.
And the fees that we're getting from this, is this kind of a break even? We're providing the service, or are we?
It's maybe a little better than break even, but there are some things that come up that we don't always plan for. Some of these security things that we've seen in the last couple of years, we've been able to tap some of that. We don't turn over that equipment, every year, but so that piles up and then it's gone pretty quick. So we have been cost positive all along with this. So really, from a standpoint of what we paid for Candido to get on this, we've spent nothing. We've spent it all out of this other fund.
And your fee structure is sufficient for now?
I think for right now, I think as some of these, we'll always revisit those if those changes, if we get closer to the, there has to be a win, right? We have to have a win, is the way I see it is. And for us, it's feeling good that we're helping out our other counties, but we can't jeopardize what we're doing. And when that becomes an issue, then we will be back and have this conversation.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
So my question is, when we add like another county, is it a lot of extra workload, or is it just, or does it just kind of fit right in?
The onboarding, there's a lot more time from our staff with the onboarding.
Okay.
And, we're getting pretty good at the things, the X and Y, Z that we need. But that's why we charge more upfront. And, there's the dollars to pay for that. We are short-staffed, so, it does stretch us a little bit. But once it's up, Next Chapter Technology does a lot of the maintenance, the day-to-day stuff. We keep the wheels turning, and they keep the application, up to par, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this update. It really sounds like a win-win situation at this point, maybe adding more, and you're going to use good judgment when you bring that forward to us if we add more down the road. But I'm really glad to see we can help out other counties, and yet it's a good deal or a fair deal for us too.
Other questions? I would so I don't know how long ago you were a little short of staff downstairs.
Still are.
Still are?
Yeah.
But you still feel confident you can take this?
Yeah, I think we can take care of this. This
Yeah.
is something we can tackle and,
Okay.
you know.
All right. Very good. If there are no other questions, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Anybody need a break? We're 10 minutes ahead. If you can't tell, I've been pushing us along a little bit because we have commitments in St. Paul, some of us, but we are a little bit ahead. If you don't need a break, okay, go ahead.
If we could take a break, I would.
Okay, 5 minutes. We'll recess for 5 minutes. We'll reconvene the Kennewick County Board of Commissioners. Up next is the fourth quarter fund balance investment report for the 2023 and the 2023 year-end trial balance. So, Karen?
I'll just tee this up real quick. For Karen, we were visiting before Kelsey Baker, County Administrator. This was requested to be on the agenda by the board chair, and we, I think there's been quite a few years where the full board gets this report. And we want to make sure that we're answering the questions and providing the information in the most productive and professional way. And so we have the information that you all received in an email a couple weeks ago. I don't believe any of you had any questions regarding the information that was in the board packet or the email that you received. However, we want to make sure kind of today, if you can provide some questions or information that you would want to receive for our first budget work session, which will be held April 16th. And so that we can get that information so that we're prepared for the 16th on what reports we include. I did talk to the board chair this morning on the trial balance that wasn't included in the board packet. That is something that has never been included in the board packet. It's not that it's not public information, just how we relay the information to the public. But Karen has copies of that if we want to hand it out. I just would caution that that's something that we keep internally. That is not something that we prepare to have for public distribution. And so I just want you to know that that's an internal document, and then at the April 16th, that these reports will look a little different based off the information you're requesting for us to provide more in detail. So I'll let Karen kind of go over that investment in the balance report, but I just want to caution if you have questions or comments or what information you need ahead of time is that you can get that to us so that we are better prepared at the April 16th budget work session.
Thank you. Welcome, Karen.
Good morning, Karen Anderson, County CFO. And I do have the reports with me. First, are there any questions that any of you have right off the bat?
Well, I'll just explain why I asked to have this information on the board. So when we receive this report, we look at them and say, okay, we budgeted X amount and ended up with another amount. What does that really mean for the finances of the county? For example, there's one that is like 120% over
Right.
budget. And I'm sure there's a good explanation for that, but if anybody sees this, they say, whoa, what in the world happened there? And that's the reason
Right.
why I'm asking for this presentation.
And I think
Thank you for being here.
one big thing that this report is lacking, it's only giving you the expenses. I think we should maybe add the revenue side also, because in the one, solid waste was the one that was 117%. Revenues were also up. So the expenses may have been this much over, but revenues often were over too. So I think that definitely is something we should add to this.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it would give you a lot better.
But why don't you
picture.
go ahead and present what you have to present and then, or, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, to carry on from where you were saying, it's really good to have a short discussion on this. And first off, looking at it, if we're within 6% of a budget, I think that's really done well for that year. So I don't look at this as a criticism, but as we look at budgets, we look at 5 years forward or more as we do each year's budget. But to look forward, we also have to look backward and look at what are some of the trends. And this is probably maybe come out more at the April meeting you're talking about, because some of the areas had an increase of $1 million or more. Well, was there a trend to that, or like you said, what's the reason for that? It'd just be nice to know in a general. We don't want to get into the details why you spend so much on a rubber band or a pencil,
Right.
but just looking forward for trends so we can budget for that. So thank you.
And that would, I think, something too, when we go to the work sessions, we can look at the actual budgets closer and
Then
show
we can-
what was making them up. I can pull specific reports that would detail one fund
Yeah.
or many funds, whatever you'd want to look at.
So my question would be then, if you can highlight on some you're aware of, why don't you share that? Otherwise, we'll just save the rest and won't ask specific questions.
I don't have real specifics on these.
Okay.
County building was one of the larger ones that was over, and I believe that was possibly due to the heat pumps.
Yeah.
And I think we had bumped them up in when they were gonna be done. So things like that do happen.
So that money for the heat pumps, being you bring up the heat pumps, that was not in the 2023 budget? The money
was
for
in
the
the 23
repairs
budget.
was in the 2023 budget? Yeah. So this reflects an overage?
It would reflect an overage.
Got it. And then, which is not uncommon. And then, like, for example, the road and bridge fund, we know there's restrictions there too because, or anomalies that happen. And I don't know if you want to try to answer that or if Mel would be better to answer why some things change.
Well, I think for a good example is you all received your budget audit financial booklet. And there's a page within that booklet that goes over the restricted and unrestricted. So what we see within family service, road and bridge, solid waste, might be it. There's restricted and unrestricted funds. And so there's many accounts within road and bridge most of them are restricted. And so it might look like road and bridge has a lot of cash or investments. And in all reality, there's not a lot of it because it's all restricted to only use for many different areas, right? And that's the same goes to true for family service, and solid waste and other accounts within those funds. Those are just the main funds that we have. And so I think we can really go into depth on this today. But we want to make sure that if that's something that you're looking for, we can easily, when we do our budget work session, provide those restricted and unrestricted funds. And so that the board is aware of those. And I think it's like page 33 in our financial book. Karen and I look at it all the time on what's restricted and what's not, so.
Sure. I think there's only about 5 that are not restricted, if I remember right. But my question is, the variance, there's usually a good reason. Maybe all the snow we had last year, I'm not sure what caused, and so those things are normal, but I think for the person reading this that doesn't understand that, they say, holy cats, we need to up our budget next year to cover this. But maybe next year it goes the opposite direction because so far this year we haven't had a lot of snow. Am I right or wrong in that?
Mr. Chair, for the road and bridge specifically, there's really 2 areas that were over. Number one was construction. We're about $1.1 million over in construction. And that was because we had prices, and we actually discussed this prior to award. The bid prices came in way higher. And so that was the first thing. And then the second one is, unusually in our case, we did put about $200,000 into investments. So that's where our 1.3 or 1.2 over, I believe it is. That's where ours specifically. Now, as far as, I will address a little bit of the overage and the snow. What we did to offset that is we didn't seal coat. So what we'll do is, we normally cover our winter activities with some sacrificial project that summer, usually seal coat, crack sealing, graveling, or whatever it is. So we offset those internally. We just manage our budget within. But the number that you see in here is specifically related to road construction costs, and then, in this case, a small investment.
Sure. And that's the point of the exercise, is to understand that an investment actually shows up causing the budget to go over in this case, which is not a
can.
bad thing.
No.
But it does explain why that happens. And so probably the same thing is true in capital equipment. At being 12% low means we probably didn't spend some money that was intended to be spent, or we saved some money in what we spent. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that would be accurate.
Okay.
Yes, that would-
Anybody else have any questions for Ms. Anderson? Go ahead.
So we had a little bit of a surprise with the county building fund with the heat pumps that we ended up replacing more than what we'd planned. Are there any other surprises? I mean, anything that came up unexpected that we had overages on, or other than that?
Not
Out
that
of the
I'm
ordinary, nothing out of.
aware of right offhand. Do you know of anything?
There were a lot of like public defenders, that cost, that's something we can go way more in detail, and we'll have a report that where the variance is for each fund. Something very similar that I was familiar with in Swift County, we did a quarterly financial report, so the board will see where the variance was and where the overages are, where we're really under, where you have some funds available. That's something we'll go more in detail, but there wasn't really anything that was a surprise,
Okay.
per se.
What I don't see on here, and probably most likely for good reason, is I know in the sheriff's department, we had that unexpected surprise about having to change food services. I think at a cost of about $200,000, for that. That wouldn't come up in any of these.
It would be under the general fund.
So the sheriff's department isn't their own fund, they're under 01, the general fund. And so the overage will come out of 23, in the general fund. Clearly, we were not that far over in other departments, because the percentage isn't really there. We're at 105, 106.
So that $200,000 is in that 105%.
Correct.
Yes.
And then in 2024, we were able to accurately put that into place.
Okay. Yeah, any other questions?
I'm good.
And then you're going to present that fund trial balance, you want to do that on April 16th?
Sure.
So we can
do that.
we have to start preparing for the budget and where we have opportunities or concerns in terms
Right.
of, getting through the next budget cycle.
Are there certain funds that you want to look at, go more in depth at that work session?
Well, we have some funds that, as I understand it, are generally positive from year to year, like the solid waste, I think was an example that was used, and perhaps one of the funds over at the jail for prisoner holds, to see what opportunities, and then investments. There's also an investment portion here
There is.
of
That-
the report.
Right. Basically tells you how much money we have invested, average interest rate, and the average maturity.
Which is very positive. I did the math on this. It looks like we have a little over $1 million represented right here. Now, that 21,000, is that part of the general fund? I think about it as I do out at my stores, at our stores, that we don't need $100,000 in our checking account from month to month. So we take part of that, put it in investment where we can get at least a little bit of return until we need it.
Right.
Because we get our tax payments done in October and then again in May, so we ended up with, at times we're cash rich and at times the checkbook is starting to get a little empty. Is that?
Right.
Do I have that correct?
You do have that correct.
Okay.
Well,
Go
I was
go
just gonna say that's county government, that's a treasurer. If you've ever went to a elementary school and if they ask, what does the auditor treasurer do? The treasurer is like a checkbook. So it's the same.
Well, I missed that class in grade school.
Business, or if you've told people
Taken
about
me
county
69
government.
years to learn it. But no, I understand, but it helps me and it might help others to kind of break it down to things that we
Right.
work with on a day-to-day basis and how we might.
And that 21 million that's invested, that covers more than just revenue. Road and Bridge has some, county building has some invested, capital equipment, landfill. They're all varied between the three investment firms we work with. And one that is not on here is the Magic Fund. And we've been using that quite a bit as our rates have been consistently high this year, right around the 5 to 5.4.
Commissioner Berg, you have a
Oh,
question?
and with the Magic Fund then, since that's not on here, that's some of we invest more in shorter term investments there
Yes.
too. So that's some of our cash flow
That we can
from the
use.
levy that comes in twice a year. We're using that.
Yes.
So when we're looking at this for everybody's information, it's my understanding, just verify if I'm correct then, is that, we look at cash reserves and this is, so much months of cash reserves here. But also you can look at cash reserves as this and the operating dollars as well.
Yes and no.
So if you look at the two different ways, the
Right.
second way, we're very comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I look at this report, did you have a question, Commissioner?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So when it says average maturity, does that mean these are locked in for a certain amount of time, or are they flexible where we can draw them down as we need them?
These three with the brokers are locked in.
Okay,
It's bond that we've bought or a CD that has a definite maturity date.
Okay, but they're not all at that 4.36, some
No.
are like maybe 6 months or
Right,
a year.
yep, that's just the average. We
Okay.
try to keep everything within maybe a 5-6 year period.
Okay,
The only one that's longer is the Charles Schwab.
okay.
That has some longer term.
Yeah, it really does beg the question, why don't we get rid of that one at 1.65 and go into the one at
And
4.03?
the.
Yeah, they're tied up.
The sad part
Just
is
like a
when we
contract.
invested, that was actually a good rate.
Yeah, yeah. Just like our mortgages, you know, once you sign them, you're stuck with them.
Right.
Or you benefit from them, depending on
Right.
the case, so. All right, well, I found this to be very helpful and I appreciate the presentation, but does anybody else, before we move on, does anybody else have any questions?
No, not at this point.
All right, thank you for coming up.
We'll see you again in a month, right?
Yes.
Or a little over a month, I guess, yes. Not quite March yet.
All right, wow, we matched the schedule perfectly. At 10:50, we have Kansas
Okay.
County Telecommunication Memorandum of Agreement vacation. Connie?
Good morning. Connie Mort, Human Resources Director for Candy, Ojai County. I'm coming to you today with this memorandum of agreement that will allow our telecommunicators or in our dispatch department would allow them to be paid out for vacation time that will accrue over the 264-hour limit that is referenced in the collective bargaining agreement effective January 1 of 2024 through December 31 of 2026. The reason I bring this forward to you today, the proposal for this agreement is that we would allow the members of the telecommunicators staff, allow them to have their vacation time paid out bi-weekly if they were to be over that 264-hour limit. And we're just limiting it to this collective bargaining agreement. And the reason for that is the understaffing of the department at this time. We've had some retirements and we've had some folks that have left to go to different careers with other law enforcement agencies. And so we are looking at a staffing shortage at this time. We do have a number of candidates that are in the pre-employment process, and we will have this rectified fairly quickly. But again, there are going to be at least 3 out of 14 are going to be new employees, and they're going to be taking some time with their field training officers, the same as they would in other areas of law enforcement. So there will be training involved, and in order for this department to get back up and running with full-time staff, operating in their full capacity, I ask that you allow this memorandum of agreement to be effective for the remainder of 2024. And we will revisit staffing and then the levels also of the accruals of vacation time at that time. Any questions?
Well, first of all, let's entertain a motion for the request. I'll entertain a motion for the request.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the recommendation of staff.
Commissioner Gardner moves the recommendation of staff for this memorandum of agreement. Do I hear a second?
I will second that. but I have
Mr.
some
Burke
questions.
seconds. And you go ahead with your question.
Okay. Is there any a dollar amount that we could project what this would cost additional? It seems like the right thing we have to do. But I'd just like to know what the impact financially would be.
Well, the impact financially is that they're still accruing this vacation time. The only difference would be, yes, it would be an additional amount.
This budget.
Because under regular circumstances, if you get to 264 hours, that vacation just rolls off. And what we're asking to do then is to not let that vacation roll off, but to give it to those long-term employees. And it wouldn't affect all of our employees. It would affect more than likely our long-term employees that are accruing at the higher rate and that have just not been able to take a vacation because of the staffing shortage.
Right. My question is, is this a significant impact at all financially? And Administrator Baker, would this be
No, I don't believe that it is. Again, it's going to be a limited effect for a limited amount of people in that classification. And again, it will be until we get our staffing numbers up. It will purposely, we're letting this sunset on January or December 31st of 2024 and to reexamine it at that time. I purposely asked for that, or until such time that we have our department fully staffed. We're now getting to the end of February. If we're looking at having the rest of our staff in place by the end of March, then maybe we look at, 4 to 5 months for training. I think that it's totally doable that we will be through this process by the end of the year at the latest.
Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
So I think the reason why we're in this situation is because law enforcement, they really are kind of separate from regular employees where they really can't put in for time off if there are shortages, right? I mean, basically,
Right. They're essential personnel.
Yeah,
We
so-
need to be staffed.
yeah, so we kind of really
Gotta
need
do
to
it.
do this
There's
to
no-
keep
there's no
those people
question
here
about that.
because they maybe want to take vacation, but they can't because of the situation they're in.
And the staff is very dedicated. They're just asking to have this be something that they can look at. They're not able to take these vacations, so just not to be able to lose that vacation time because they are dedicated and they do take those shifts as needed. If you remember correctly, it wasn't that long ago, a year or two ago, where we had the same memorandum of agreement with the deputies, with that collective bargaining agreement as well, for the same reasons. And our staffing levels have improved, and that did sunset as of 12/31 of 2023, I believe. So that was in place for less than a year as well for the deputies. I'm asking the same for this group as well.
And this group is what? Dispatch?
Dispatch, yes, telecommunicators.
Telecommunicators, okay.
And to answer your question, is because we don't have the staff that we've budgeted for.
Yep.
So we're falling below that payroll line because we
Other
don't
than
have
that,
the
so
staff
that's
in place, right? If we were fully staffed and we'd get this, then it would be over budget. Right now, when we don't have the staff and we allow this, it might come out of a different line. But overall, the first 6 lines of your department budgets all go through are all used for payroll. And so we're not going over that. Once we get to staff, then we'll reevaluate and this would go away because we're able to take time off.
So
Or the
what you're
staff are.
saying, there's no significant impact.
Correct.
Bottom line, once we get there. Thank you.
Correct.
That's all I wanted to
And I
know.
will say the telecommunicators, and I know Connie has spoke with the supervisor and the sheriff, along with the union rep for them. They're being very cautious, and I think they were all even reluctant to ask of this because it's something that we don't want to do because we should always be at full staff. But I know they've been struggling, and I don't think they would have asked this if they weren't at their wits' end right now. So I think I can get the number where how many
Oh, no,
staff
that's
we
fine.
have at the max, but I don't believe it's going to be all the employees.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes, I agree. We have to do this. There's no doubt about it. They're essential employees, and we got to take care of our employees. I just was wondering if there's a significant impact, and you answered my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, and then also, Commissioner Anderson had brought a good point forward with law enforcement as well. We do a lot of hiring and we fill a lot of positions across the county, but in law enforcement, the process is so much longer. We have, an excessive background, and I shouldn't say excessive, an extensive backgrounding procedure, and as well as some other areas that are exclusive to law enforcement. It is a longer process. So, their patience has been duly noted in this department as well as other law enforcement bargaining units in prior years.
Thank you.
So when we pay this out, because I'm guessing that there's a lot of overtime that is being probably accrued because we are short-staffed. Do we need people to stay on? But when we pay out any vacation, will that be paid at overtime rate or standard rate?
That should be paid at standard rate, right? We would calculate overtime if they were generally speaking, if they're working those overtime shifts, yes, that would be calculated overtime for that time worked, or if they're working on holidays or et cetera. But to the best of my knowledge, these dollars would be paid at a regular rate. It's just rolling over their accrual rate of 264 hours or the limit.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
All right, we are at administrative updates. So we'll start with Administrator Baker and the Building Committee update.
Yeah, so we had a building committee meeting last week. I don't know if the two commissioners that sit on the committee, Commissioner Imdyke and Commissioner Dale Anderson, we had decided that we thought it would be best that Barbara sent an email to the full board. You received that. We'll be sending out a survey to the employees, all county employees, regarding kind of the projects that we're going to be doing moving forward. We've kind of broke this into two different types of project, a maintenance project and a pre-design project. So there'll be two different things going on. One of the maintenance projects, if we have, we do have dollars budgeted for that, so then we would give our facilities director authority to move forward with any other maintenance project that he does anyways. And so then we'll do the survey, and then Barbara will be here at the second meeting in March, I believe, to do more of a detailed report. I'm not sure what else the commissioners wanted me to update on. That's kind of really where we're at. We're not making a decision right now regarding any building project. We're trying to make sure that we involve the stakeholders, which would be the employees and the entities that rent space within the Health and Human Services building. And so once that survey is done, then we'll have more information on how we want to present that information to the board. But as of right now, like I said, I'll just be sending out a survey within the next 2 weeks. And then we'll have more of a report at a later date.
Thank you.
And
Commissioner Anderson, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't.
Did you have a question?
oh, the survey, what's it going to include then? The remodeling then, survey, or is it just about?
Nope,
the
it'll
needs
just
and-
be maybe some safety, security questions. It'll be how do you utilize your space, what meeting rooms, things like that. And so we'll be able to ask our employees and stakeholders kind of what they see and how they utilize the building. You know, we maybe haven't done that for a while, and so that might be a good place to start. And I think everybody knows we're not going to the board asking to rechange everything right now. We're just trying to find that information to make the best decision moving forward.
So one of the other things that, I'd bring up is that Andy Thorson was there, and as you recall I think it was October, when we approved the facilities assessment study. I think it was $125,000. They're nearly done with that study. Andy said they'd be done with it on March 12th or 16th. Do you remember the date?
12th.
But it'll be after our next board meeting, so I suggested that we have the author of that report present to us. And there's a lot of information in there. I think it's several hundred pages. We got an executive summary. I've taken a look at it. I think generally we're in pretty good shape, but just to understand the report, how it goes, it's really no different than probably your house. You put new shingles on your house in 2015, and the difference in the condition from 2015 to today will change, and it'll change again 5 years down the road. And this gives you an opportunity to schedule out your funding mechanisms for those timely replacements. And essentially what it will do is give us an opportunity to separate out, if we have to, our wants from our needs. What things have to be done, like that roof on the mental health building, and what things don't, in case we need to, at the time when we look at our overall budget. So I'm looking forward to, I shouldn't think there'd be any problem with them doing a present coming up. They're from Dallas, but $125,000 was a pretty good payment, so I'm hoping that includes a explanation and a presentation to us.
I don't know if I don't know if they will be here to present The assessment, the overall, just because of flights and everything that we would have to pay out of that.
So our contract didn't cover any of that, to your knowledge?
Nope.
Okay. And we have Mr. Chair, an
Yeah.
ongoing fee too, and there's an annual fee to this?
No.
No, there is none, okay.
Oh, no. I
With
think there
Brightly,
is
that's something different. There will be a fee with the service that we have for that capital and.
Yeah, okay,
improvement,
that's what I
yes.
meant.
But that's something that we already have. It's just gonna go more in depth on everything.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for that update. That brings us to appointments. Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We recently had to fill an opening on the HRA board. We had a commissioner on that board who was finding it difficult to be able to continue in that position. Very much a community leader and busy in the community, busy at work, and something had to give, and so they gave their resignation. And so I'm pleased to bring forward an appointee to the HRA board, who is Mary Sawatsky. Mary is a retired educator. She is, of course, well-known for her work with the Wilmer Baseball Boosters, among other entities like League of Women Voters and so forth. And I would move approval of her appointment to the HRA board.
So you've heard, I'll take that as a motion to appoint it. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, knowing who she is, I would highly recommend her. Good choice.
I would agree. Good choice. Any other comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And Mr. Chair, I am aware that I still need to find an appointee for the Extension Committee. I've asked around a couple of times and I've been told either no or not yet, or in one case, they don't live in my district. So, I'm still working on that, and I hope to have someone by our next meeting.
Do we know that that's not, there's a couple of at-large positions, isn't there?
Yeah.
I've been told in our discussions
Has to
when
come-
at
has to
reorg
come from
that
his.
this had to be from my district.
All right, so, well, you have the floor. Let's start with our report outs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one item that I do want to spend just a couple of moments on is the fact that Aaron Backman, who is the executive director of the Candioi County EDC, or Economic Development, we're calling ourselves now, has announced his resignation. And so we were starting that process of finding our next executive director for that organization. We did have a meeting last week to review the parameters for the position, the job description, and also to approve a slate of firms to receive RFPs. We expect to have those in maybe just a couple of weeks, I believe. And then we'll start evaluating that. We will hire a search firm out of that. We know that we need to do this because, frankly, the work that Aaron has done has been nothing short of spectacular in his 8 years. It's highly important that we get this right. And so it is our intent to be able to essentially do a wide-scale search for that next economic development director and we want someone who has a focus on rural Minnesota. It's going to be highly key that we have someone who is invested at that specific level, and that is probably one of the most important things that we will do as a joint powers board in this year, and it will impact us for more than several years to come. let's see, Woodland Centers had a program committee meeting, Woodland Centers board meeting last week as well, and I'm sure Corky will want to touch on that when he gives his report. But that was the primary thing that I wanted to touch on today.
Thank you. You want to go next, Dwayne? if
Yeah,
you're ready?
I can go next. I don't know if I'll go into detail on everything, but I'll just mention the meetings I went to. I went to Central Minnesota Jobs and Training meeting. That was Friday, February 9th.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Yep.
Are we looking for a replacement for Central Minnesota?
Not,
There was something
not-
you brought up a while back about.
no, not, it could be saying that for canvassing board, was that the one?
No, for Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, it seemed like there was,
Yeah, I don't think there was anything there.
and I might be thinking of, one of our EMC staff members is now the state
Oh,
coordinator
okay.
for Jobs and Training.
Okay. Yeah, so they're kind of still working through stuff with Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, so right now there really isn't anything additional to report on. But they are going to meet every month, so I'll be meeting in March again with them. Usually they were, I think, quarterly approximately, so. Then I had on February 12th, we had a county extension committee meeting. There was an opening that we're still working on with Commissioner Gardner.
Thanks for trying, though.
Yep. Anyway, so that, and then I just want to mention, if anybody knows in the future, we're working on finding, Farmer of the Year award. And so in the future, if anybody knows of any recommendations for Farmer of the Year, please bring it either to myself or to Commissioner Dale Anderson so we can kind of get those people on the list. The problem with it is if they get picked one year, they aren't eligible basically ever again. So it's
We have a
with this-
growing number of farmers.
yeah. So, but not just that. There's people that can fit in like that. That aren't what you would consider as a traditional farming type practice, but there's other kind of specialties that can be recommended for that too. So just keep that in mind. If you have any ideas or names, we would appreciate that in the future. On the 15th of February, that'd be last week, I met with the Pioneer Land Library Executive Finance, and then what we do have, I believe it's a tentative agreement, basically an agreement with the employees, a new contract for them. And so that went actually relatively painless. So, and then last Friday, I met with, it was a joint drainage board of JD 17. I met with Meeker County commissioners. What we're having a situation, we're trying to nip it in the bud, is we have county ditches, and some people, they just think they can close up a portion of it, and then that way they don't have to worry about the buffer strips and stuff. And I don't have a problem with people wanting to do that, but they have to go through the proper procedure, which is they have to petition for abandonment of a county ditch system. And they, their argument, and I can understand that, is that they're trying to save money and they don't want to pay for engineering fees and lawyer fees and that sort of thing. But the problem is if you say you put tile in that open ditch and then you close it up, now you have a private tile system inside of a county ditch system, and it just makes it a mess. And it isn't engineered properly in most cases because they didn't figure in the capacity of those systems. And what happened here was the individual took a ditch with a 4-foot bottom, and then he put a 24-inch tile in it. And to me, you're restricting the flow pretty dramatically, but we don't really know because we didn't have engineers look at it. So we're giving that person or an individual a timeline here of June 1st to begin the procedure of rectifying that situation, or else we'll step in the role and possibly open up that ditch system and then charge it back to the landowner. So people can't just do that. That's my report.
All right.
I do have one thing. Previously I was appointed to the canvassing board for elections, and I'm good with the August primary and the November election. But a situation came up where the same day where I could make it to it, but I found that Steve Gardner would replace me for the presidential primary here coming up in March, and that would be on March 7th that he would be willing to take my place and being on that canvassing board that day. So
Mr. Chair, do you need a motion for that then?
I'm not sure if we need that or.
We just would have to let Mark Thompson.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mentioned it to him and to Mark Thompson, and he said it'd be okay to appoint someone else for that.
And that's just a one-off for that presidential primary because they have a conflict.
Commissioner Dale Anderson.
Just a couple of things that I had. I was at the CEC meeting on the 12th with Dwayne. I guess the only other thing I want to bring up on that is that I really want to give kudos to the new 4-H people that they hired. These two young girls, Beth and Kylie, have worked hard to try and kind of correct some mistakes that were made. We just had interns last year for the 4-H side of it, and I was, it worked, but it didn't work well. So I just want to give them a little bit of a recognition for the work they're doing to try and straighten out things. Look for input from the community and from people involved in 4-H, which I appreciate a lot that they're taking time to do that. So I just want to say thanks to them guys for that. Other than that, Master Gardeners are going to try and do some planting at the county fair this year too. And that's part of our CEC committee also. So that's good that we've got an opportunity for them to show off their works and be a little more out in the community in seeing what they're doing too.
Commissioner, CEC is County Extension.
County Extension, yes, yes, sorry. The other one is the Building Committee, and we've already talked about that. One thing I do want to bring up, and it wasn't a meeting and it wasn't anything, but I've been getting a lot of interest and concern over the lakes up in my area, Norway Lake, Games Lake, them lakes, and it's a long process, and I think people are frustrated that the process doesn't go faster than it does, but we really have to wait for the Chippewa Watershed Master Plan to get done, and that isn't done yet. So there isn't funding available, and it still goes back to we have to find landowners to willing to help with these projects. So I guess I just wanted to make the public know that we do hear what you guys are concerned about. We do want it to get better, but it takes years. It isn't going to happen in 2 months, 5 months, 6 months. It's going to take a long time, and we just have to stay active in it and not let it get on the back burner. But I just want people to know it just takes time, and that's going to work its way through, and hopefully we can come to some things that we can help to make them lakes better and our water quality better. So that was the one thing I wanted to bring up.
Thank you, Commissioner Berg.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. I was also on the EDC board and the ops board, and Commissioner Gardner gave an excellent overview of what's been taking place on those two boards, and I won't report any more on that, but it's very well, a lot going on there, and we're sure going to miss Mr. Backman. So I had an 18-county mental health consortium meeting, as well as a subcommittee meeting looking at the bylaws and the joint power organization. And the more we look into that, it's taking a lot of time, and it's going to take a whole lot of time, let's say all year. But we're getting there, and it's important we look at things and go back, and things have changed over time. I had a woodland centers as well, and not really too much to comment to the public at this point. A lot of discussion, looking at the board member setup and staff salaries and bonuses and so forth. So very, very good meeting, and there was a retreat that we had that was excellent, I understand, and we're looking at another retreat coming up too, so, and work sessions. So they're very involved, very good organization. I had a PAC 4 for families meeting, and just want to, nothing really new other than they had a really good program. Every month they have a program as well. And they had a really good, every month they have excellent programs, and people involved are encouraged to attend. Our next meeting, though, for PAC4 is next month, and on the same time, and that'll be our annual meeting, and we'll be looking at the election of officers again for this coming year. We had a Prime West meeting, and
Oh, I didn't even.
yeah, and you missed, yeah, I was gonna say, Dale said it all, but really with Prime West being a healthcare program, you know, they don't want us a lot to share publicly, let's put it that way, because of the confidentiality of the numbers and the competition with other, I'm assuming, with other firms as well. But anyway, we spent our time looking at our budget and going over the services being provided in quite detail. And so it's a very long meeting. It takes the whole day and a lot to learn at the same time, but a very good meeting, and they're doing really good stuff. And they reviewed, you know, some of the, looking forward to reinvestment dollars for this coming year as well, and what that would look like. So really no comment about that at this point, but we're starting to address those. PAC4, Prime West, 18 County EDC, Hot Creek was postponed. That's my total meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Baker, did you want to address the letter from Yellow Medicine?
Yeah. So last week, I received a letter or an email from the administrator down in Yellow Medicine County asking for each county that's in our region to provide a letter of support in regards to the park issues that they're facing with the Indian Affairs Council. And so this would be sent to the National Park Service, Senator Klobuchar and Senator Smith, congressional representatives, state legislatures, to kind of create awareness to what this is. And so I've worked with the chair on this. I can put that on the next board agenda, what would be included in that letter of support, if you wish to provide that to that county.
Thank you. Yeah, I also received a copy of that. And one of the things that crossed my mind, because we talk about it at AMC, when we talk about amicus briefs, is that we're kind of struggling here between a stay in our lane policy and not a stay in our lane policy. We certainly want to support our neighbors, and there's times we may need that same support. However, at what depth and level of detail do we want to put in that letter? Do we generally want to say we support the agreements that, you know, the federal government and the state government have agreed upon in exchange? Or so I'd like for you to distribute this letter to everybody. It gives it a chance to think about it for our next discussion, because we can't move on it today because you've not seen it other than in your packet. Or no, it wasn't in the packet, was it?
Well, no, and typically just, so, I mean, this is a process thing too. I think typically, we've had letters of support come through committee reports like this that have been kind of a nod your head, we're all okay sending this. And so for a process situation, if that's something we want to start doing, then I will put this on the next agenda, or I can put it on the agenda for upcoming. I wouldn't feel comfortable emailing this because you are going to vote on it. But we can include it in the next board packet. I don't think they're looking for it's not a timing issue per se, but in just so that we can be clear on all processes moving forward, that letters of support, then we won't take action during committee reports moving forward.
So, go ahead.
I'm not sure one blanket statement fits all. You know, some letters of support are pretty easy to look at. This one sounds like there's some questions, so I think we should be flexible, and I think I would like to see that we continue to have letters of support that we could bring up, and we can just, or like this, we can talk about, well, we can put it off. That's.
Yeah, it could be as simple as we support Yellow Medicine County in their efforts to get equitable exchange for the land, or we can, this looks like it's more than 2 pages, probably verbatim from what Yellow Medicine is sending out. I think the question is, do we, without the board being able to see that letter, how will they be able to?
Well, the letter of support that was brought up at the January 16th meeting was nobody else saw that other than you and I and my administrative
No,
assistant.
we're talking about this one
I
right
understand
now,
that, so
so-
we're talking, but I think if we were to talk about what's gonna be in that letter at the board level, it's gonna maybe get in the weeds a little bit. I can tweak what the administrator suggested and then put that in the board packet to see if there would be any changes or anything.
Maybe, County Attorney Baker, you have is there a concern with sharing this letter with the board?
If it's through the board packet, I'd have no concern.
Yeah. That way they'd have a chance to look at it, see if that's the language you're comfortable with before we take it up for a motion on our next meeting. So, Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm aware that this is in relation to the parkland that they're having to give up. And my really only concern, and maybe I'm overthinking this a little bit, is we earlier had a item presented to us regarding our working with the Indian Council in regards to our park. And I know that there is a component of that involved in that same discussion down there. My only concern here would be that we perhaps get into a situation where, depending upon what our level of support is for this, does it potentially damage any of the goodwill that we're trying to create in our own situation? I would like us to keep that at the forefront of our minds as we consider what to do with this.
Thank you. That's really a good point because, I mean, some of these things are really not in our control. But we want to make sure that we support our neighboring counties, and one day we're going to hopefully get the same support. And so, you know,
We just need to be intentional
yeah,
about it. That's
be
all I'm
intentional
saying.
and be able to have the information so that you can think about what is the right way forward on this. So thank you very much for that update. I attended the county drainage conference in Alexandria about 2 weeks ago. I lost track of time when that was, and so some of the other things, and that was a huge turnout again. They expected, like they did last year, about 75 people, and they had almost 200 registrations for that. So that was really satisfying to see so much interest in that conference. We already talked about the EDC special board. The building committee we already talked about, Kaneohe County, Renville Public Health Community Advisory Board, we already talked about. The presentation from Chris Wenich was part of that committee. And one of the things that I, as the chair and as I'm talking to my colleagues from around the state, I'd like my colleagues here to be thinking about is the Association of Minnesota Counties in the last year, as part of their educational and part of the intern work that we've had, have studied and put together some documents regarding county board operating guidelines. And when I search online for county operating guidelines, I get several hits, like from Scott County, Chisago County, Brown County, Dakota County, EMC has stuff. To my knowledge, Kaneohe County doesn't have one. And I think it would serve us to have one of these documents. And so I'm going to encourage you, in the future, I'd like to schedule some meetings where we can take a look at what maybe some of these other counties are doing and see if they are a good fit for us and how we operate. I know Dakota County had to do a minor adjustment to theirs this year as and every year, because you have new members, you might have changes. But something to be thinking about. When you can't sleep at night, Google County Board Operating Guidelines, and you'll get several hits from the county. So, Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate that excellent suggestion. I have a couple of those printed out and already in my in my briefcase and been looking at that and been considering just that very thing. So I appreciate your bringing that forward.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder, sorry about that, but
No.
I just think it's
It
not.
wasn't ready for prime time yet anyway.
And then, a lot of this is coming forward, actually, the stay in your lane policy that a lot of people have adopted in the last couple of years has brought some of these conversations forward. So, and then the last thing I would have is that I feel like I kind of owe the board an apology for the egregious offense of forgetting to call for a vote once in a while. And I'd ask for a little bit of grace from, as you guys presented me earlier, this happens all of the time. Happens
Never
at the
happens.
Association Minnesota County. It happens at our committee meetings. It happens all the time. And so I apologize for having forgot to ask for a question occasionally. It sounded like that was a big deal.
But
And I asked for a little
I
bit
would
of
just
grace.
say, one thing, it wasn't getting after you, I just couldn't remember if we had or hadn't.
To my point, it happens to everybody. It happens at the AMC meeting, so.
And Mr. Chair, at least you didn't forget to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
And I will try to stay focused. So with that, we will, sorry.
If I could,
Just beat the
I know you're just watching your glances, but Road and Bridge, we do normally a first quarter Road and Bridge. And the off week, Administrator and I looked at March 26th. If you could be thinking about it, it's 6 weeks out. We're flexible on that date. But we would normally, at this Road and Bridge meeting, we would look at our 5-year, we would look at some drainage updates, we would look at what we're doing this year, and look forward to the next years. So March 26th in the morning, just think about.
Why don't we pull our calendars out right now?
Well, March 26th, wasn't that the one with Health and Human Services?
No,
Oh,
March
that was-
19th.
Oh. My battery went dead in my computer. I couldn't. pull
What
out my
time are you
calendar.
looking at?
We would do like at 8:30 to 11 or something, it would just be a morning thing, 2.5 hours probably.
March 26th is our fourth Tuesday of the month of March.
Gotcha.
It works for our staff, but it's got to work more importantly for you.
Can we tentatively put it down for what time?
Well, 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever, we would normally starting at 8:30 just because we would sooner be done early, but it doesn't matter to us either.
Please do.
Let's do it that way at 8:30 pending Corky's, he doesn't have his calendar running right now because his battery is dead.
Yep.
But send out a
I'll make it a
calendar
priority.
invite.
Yep, gotcha.
And Corky will probably let you know before you send out the invite whether or not it works. All right, then we are adjourned.
Right.